All right, Unit 7, the body. 7.1, understanding death. So we've talked about this already, but the Body Farm was established by a guy named Bill Bass, which was completely devoted to understanding the way that human bodies decompose. This again has now become a place where almost every law enforcement team in almost the entire country will end up doing some sort of time here at the Body Farm. So 2.5 acres. Just watching how the humans decompose, the process of postmortem decay. They are helping understand the process time since death, it says here, which we actually talk about the postmortem interval we're going to talk about here. Kind of interesting quote there. I have no idea how to say that in Latin. I could pretend, but really I don't know. But this is the place where the dead teach the living, which is pretty sweet. All right, so the job of the pathologist is manyfold. The time of death is best determined within the first 24 hours after death. We're going to use some indicators such as algor mortis, livor mortis, and rigor mortis. Probably the only one you're familiar with is this last one here, rigor mortis. But we'll talk about the other ones and how you use those to actually calculate postmortem interval, the time since death. Couple terms, manner of death, mechanism of death, and cause of death. Each one means something totally different. Manner of death is like a classification of the death, a natural death. All right, that's going to be age, illness, disease, just somebody dying because they just died. Accidental death obviously is an unintentional. If somebody is drinking and falls off a balcony, that's an accidental death. Suicide, then, obviously, is when somebody takes their own life. Top 3 causes, gunshot, hanging, and poisoning are going to be the top 3 methods of suicide. Homicide is the area that we're going to be focusing on. And it says when an individual takes the life of another intentionally or through negligent or a reckless act. So this would include things like manslaughter, accidental homicide, first degree, second degree murder, things like that. The court ultimately is what's going to be responsible for determining the type of death, the manner of death, whether it's going to be murder or if it's manslaughter, things like that. Self-defense is also a type of homicide, which you may not have really realized before. But again, this is going to be ultimately up to the court to determine. And then finally, is the last one is undetermined, and this is after all sorts of examinations. The pathologist cannot determine the manner of death. This happens pretty frequently, just due to things like decay, contaminated crime scenes. A lot of ways that an actual manner of death can be undetermined. Cause of death, then, is the immediate reason for a person's death. Okay, so this is basically like, dude, how'd he die? Oh, he was shot. There you go. That's cause of death, right? This is saying the reason they died was because of a gunshot or because of drowning or hit by a car or fell off a cliff or got stabbed. That's the cause of death. This is contrasted by the mechanism of death. So the mechanism of death is the actual physiological response that caused the cessation of life. So the mechanism of death is the body's response, why you died. So let's say you got shot by a gun and then you bled to death. That's called exsanguination. That's a good term for you to know. You probably want to make sure that you know what exsanguination is. The sangue, I think. Sangue is the root that means blood. So exsanguination is the exiting of blood from the body. Asphyxiation then, so let's say you drown. Well, the cause of death is drowning. The mechanism, though, is going to be that lack of oxygen to the brain and body, which is called asphyxiation. So that's going to be the lack of oxygen. You could die from massive organ failure. This is a lot of times a car accident or something is going to result in massive organ failure. You fall from a high height. Okay, the impact there can cause internal hemorrhaging, which will cause massive organ failure. And then pulmonary arrest or heart attack could be ultimately a mechanism of death as well. So keeping those three terms separate is going to be important. Manner, cause, and mechanism. Manner of death is like the general classification. Cause of death is the what happened, and the mechanism is the physiological response that caused the cessation of life.